How we tell true stories says a lot about what we think the most important thing is. So what's the most important thing in Next Goal Wins? Stay tuned to This, That, and Theology to find out. Hi, you're watching This, That, and Theology, equipping you to see your worldview in the world around you. Taika Waititi's latest film, Next Goal Wins, tells the true story, sort of the 2011 American Samoa soccer team that had spent 10 years without winning a single match. In fact, they hold a record for losing by the most points in 2001 when the Australian team beat them 31-0. The only other game quite that bad was this same year when Australia beat Tonga 22-0. Now, I'm not a soccer fan, but I do love films that talk about history. The director makes no secret that he has changed some of the details of this story, embellishing it because a good story is worth telling. In fact, in interviews, the director has said that a good story trumps historical accuracy. It's important to know that when you're watching this film because it definitely wants to say something. Good films don't just tell a story, they actually tell us something about who we are and our culture around us. And this film tries to do that on at least two areas. In many ways, this film is your standard sports film. A team is doing terribly, a new coach comes in, brings them around, and then they win a great victory. In this case, a great victory just means that they won a goal or two. Being a true story, there's certainly lots to be inspired by, although I found myself wishing that they had stuck a little closer to the facts as they told this story. The coach, Thomas Rongen, isn't as dynamic a character as you see on the screen. In the film, he's drunk with a severe alcohol problem, constantly drinking even while he's driving. He's estranged from his wife. He's incredibly angry. In fact, it implies that he was fired 3 times because he just couldn't control his temper. Now, this does make for an interesting and dynamic character, but the real-life Coach Rongen was still married to his wife. In fact, his wife came with him to American Samoa and was a huge support for him as he went through all of the challenges of working with this team that certainly needed a lot of help. He did not have an alcohol problem, although he did suffer from depression over the loss of his daughter. A lot of the facts about the team's rather embarrassing history are true, and much of the culture of American Samoa, as it is displayed in this film, is true to life. The film says right off the bat that they are a deeply religious people, even stopping for 10 minutes every day all over the island to stop and pray, to give thanks to God and pray for the people around them. I found myself wishing that that part of the story was brought out a little bit more. This culture, which is predominantly Christian, should have an interesting color as they talk about how they deal with loss, how they deal with a losing streak, and even the idea that their most important thing is to be happy. The gospel doesn't tell us that the most important thing is to be happy, but that is the way this people is displayed in this film. The main plot of the movie says that the coach just needed to loosen up. He needed to enjoy life. He needed to remember that soccer or football is just a game, that he should learn how to be happy. In fact, the idea that he's going through life alone and angry is answered in a late scene when the head of the American Samoan Football Club says, if you're going to lose, fine, lose. Just don't lose alone. Lose with us. The idea that he can find happiness by finally accepting the culture that he's in and to be happy just where he is. It's certainly true to say that we very often get way too caught up in competitive things, whether it's watching our sports team or playing in those sports, or even something as simple as a chess game with our friends or playing video games. We love competition, trying to seek to see who's best, but when we let that competition become the main thing and the most important thing, losing becomes the worst thing ever, and it makes winning be the most important thing, even if the only way to accomplish it is at the expense of the relationships with those around us. It's clear the director wants us to see that the most important thing isn't winning, it isn't losing, but it's the attitude that we have, the way we feel. Are we happy? Almost as if that's the most important question that we need to ask in our own lives. The reality is that we go through life and we see all sorts of things that don't necessarily make us happy. Jesus promised us in Scripture that we would experience things that we would never want to go through. We see letters that were written to the early church telling them to be encouraged in the midst of great persecution. In fact, James tells us that we should count it joy when we experience trials of various kinds, because these trials shape us into who we need to be. God is working through those things. As James says, when we go through those trials, we gain perseverance. Perseverance meaning the ability to stay under whatever challenge that is. There is a secondary plot in this film that seems to be what the director Taika Waititi is actually trying to tell us is the most important thing. It almost seems as if this whole story was only to highlight one particular player on the team. Not the goalie who gave up 31 goals and comes back to save the game, but rather a character by the name of Jaya.
The most important part of this film for me is the relationship between Thomas and Jaya.
Jaya is identified as a fa'afafine, a third gender in Polynesian culture. In modern American terms, this is a person who is transgender, who's transitioning from being male to female. In fact, of all the plot lines of this film, this story seems to be the one that stays closest to the historical details, even to the point where Joya delays taking hormonal treatments so that she can compete better on the team as a biological male. In real life, this person wasn't just accepted by their teammates, they were also accepted by Coach Rongan. In the movie, they create some sort of dynamic between Coach Rongan and Joya that there's actually some conflict where the coach doesn't accept them for who they are. By making this part of the coach's character flaws, the director is telling us we shouldn't be like the coach, we need to be more accepting ourselves. It's very clear throughout the film that the director wants us to be more accepting, more welcoming, more encouraging of people who are on that particular path. We do believe that the Bible is clear about these issues. We believe that God created us in a certain way, that He didn't make mistakes. And sometimes when we don't feel at home in who we are, that's an issue that we need to come before God with, not necessarily taking drastic steps like surgery and hormonal treatments. I know this is not a popular topic in today's world, and there will be some who get angry that I would say this on this channel. However, this is a worldview that is being promoted in this film, and if you're making the decision to go see it, you need to be aware that it's there, if nothing else, so that you are ready to talk about it with your family as you go see this film. One other note, even though they talk about the people of American Samoa being very religious and that faith is an important part of their life, I walked away from this film feeling like they were making fun of the faith, rather than saying this was something that they should be proud of. I'll have to be honest, I had somewhat high hopes walking into this film, figuring it would be funny, that it would be something that I could enjoy. I walked away feeling like it just really wasn't. I walked away feeling like the message the film was trying to say wasn't about how to endure past hardship, but rather how we just need to focus on feeling good about ourselves, and that we should accept those who are different than us, and that we should just make sure that our happiness is the most important thing. That's not a value we should encourage in ourselves, and it's really not a value we should encourage in our children. If you're curious about the true story about the 2011 American Samoa soccer team, check out one of my favorite websites when it comes to historical movies, History versus Hollywood. I'll put a link in the description below. They go through the details of the film, show how they compare and contrast, even show pictures of the actors and the people they're portraying. Hopefully this review has been helpful. If it has, go ahead and like that, subscribe, maybe even share it to those who might find it helpful as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on This, That, and Theology.
We've worked too long and hard for this. Are you with me, my team?
Coach, my ankle is hurting.